Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial, and if you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast episode. And if you love this podcast, please do me a favor, give us a rating and review however you listen to us. It allows more people to find this podcast and be able to hopefully grow from listening to it as well. So if you would do that, I would greatly appreciate it. Today, I'm going to teach you 3 keys to mastering your communication. This might be one of the most important skills that you can learn to have a real lasting connection with other people and to build up your communication skills. And the key part of it is love, but it's not the love that you're actually thinking. And so, we've all heard communication is the number one skill and key to any relationship. And I use the word skill on purpose, is because communication is not something that you're just born with. I've never seen a baby that's immediately speaking as soon as they come out of the womb. I don't know about you guys. It is a skill set to be able to speak, to be able to understand, to be able to communicate effectively is a skill. It is something that every single person can improve at. So if you're sitting there listening, you're like, well, I'm just an introvert. I'm just really shy. Yeah, well, me too. I am. But over years and years and years, I've learned how to be shy and how to be an introvert, but also be able to communicate effectively when I need to. It is a skill set. Just like if you want to learn how to play basketball, if you just keep showing up and doing the right things in basketball, you'll get better at it. Same thing with communication. If you want to learn how to be a better communicator, as long as you just show up and you continue to do the right things, you will improve at your communication. And so, we've all heard that communication is the number one key to any relationship. It's the key to your romantic relationships, for sure. One of the biggest problems, if not the biggest problem, in all romantic relationships is lack of communication. Is people just do not communicate with each other. They're not communicating how they're feeling. Their spouse will do something, and then they'll just brush it under the rug, and then it builds up, and it builds up, and it builds up, and it builds up, and then they forget to wash a fork, and it turns into an absolute explosion, right? The person's like, I don't know, I just didn't do this, I didn't put the fork away. And it wasn't about the fork, it was about everything that happened before, but they don't know that because it wasn't communicated effectively to them. That's a piece of it, is withholding the communication. That's a big piece of it. Another big piece of that communication as well might not be withholding the communication. It might be just actually maybe something happens and you just have a trigger from when you were younger and you just explode over one thing that happened, right? It's these little nuances to start to figure out how to improve the communication. So it's the number one piece of relationships, with romantic relationships, with friendships, with your family, with children that you do or will eventually have. If any other human that is breathing, if they can fog a cup, what I'm going to teach you today will deepen your connection. And so really, communication, like I said, is a skill. So what we're going to talk about is this skill of communicating. And when you're listening and talking with somebody, remembering this very simple acronym, which is LUV. So when I said it's based in love, not LOVE, LUV is what we're going to talk about. And this comes from a PhD. Her name's Carol Kumpfer, I think is how you say it, Kumpfer. And this is what it is. LUV. So the L stands for listen. It's like the phrase, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, because we're supposed to be listening twice as much as we're talking, right? So that's a piece of it. It's listening without the need to feel like you have to respond. One of the things that we can all agree of, I'm sure, is that sometimes we'll be in a conversation with somebody and you can tell when somebody is just waiting for you to shut up because they have something that they want to say. And we feel bulldozed, like there's bulldoze us over in those conversations, right? The most valuable, I guess you could say the most valuable thing that you can give somebody in a conversation is your silence. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody? Think about this. I know I have. You have a conversation with somebody and they're just talking and you're barely saying anything, maybe asking a couple questions. You talk to them for a little while and then at the end, they're just like, they have energy and they're so much more excited. And they're like, you know what? Thank you so much. This is a great conversation. And you're like, yeah, of course. And then they walk away and you're like, the hell, I didn't even say anything. Like I barely even spoke. But that person thought it was an amazing conversation. Why? Because you just gave space for that human to express. And one of the things that I know is that very few people get their full expression of themselves out the way that they should. And so it's to listen, and to listen without judgment. Now, let's talk about that, without judgment. This is really hard nowadays. And if there's one thing that I've noticed over the past few years, is that people are just judging people for freaking everything. God knows what. Every single thing, what they do, what they say, what they don't do, what they believe, what they don't believe, what they think about politics, what they don't think about politics, every single thing. And the idea is, how can you listen without judgment? You could talk to somebody and they could have a completely different view of the world. Completely different view of the world. How can you listen to them without judgment? And I am of the belief that if I would have been born in their shoes and had every single second of my life be exactly the same way that theirs was, who raised me, every life experience, the good, the bad, the family, all of those things, if I were to have their exact same life experience, if they're 36 years old, if I were to be born as them and have every single life experience at every single second, I believe that I would be the exact same person as them. There's nature and there's nurture. And both of those things make up the human that is in front of you. And so can you get better at listening without judgment? And also, can you get better at listening without feeling like you have to fix? And as a guy and somebody who literally gets paid professionally to help coach people, this is really hard for me and for most guys. Also, a lot of women, this is really hard as well. To listen to somebody who's going through things and listen and then just shut up. That's really hard to do. Don't try to fix. We don't need a problem solver, but to literally just listen to them. Listening is a skill. One of the things that really deepened my listening practice was something that one of my very first mentors taught me. And damn it, it was really awkward the first few times that I did it. And he goes, if you want to be a great communicator, when somebody stops talking, go in your head, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and then now you have the opportunity to respond. And so what that means is when someone stops talking, don't say anything for 3 seconds. Give it a shot. It's hard. It's awkward because we're so used to just immediately speaking over people and immediately going, but allow 3 seconds. And how long can you go without responding? Here's the thing that I realized once I started doing this. Somebody will say something and then I'll just pause and I won't say anything for 3 seconds. Usually in those 3 seconds, they will start speaking again. And what's great about them speaking again is now they usually go deeper into what they were just saying. One of the things that I think is a tragedy nowadays is that I hate surface level conversations, and many people, our conversation is just surface level. And what happens is somebody will be speaking to you, and it can be surface level, and you allow 3 seconds, and then they start going deeper in those 3 seconds because you didn't respond. And now they're going deeper than just surface level. They're able to get below the surface because they've had some space to be able to do so. And you usually start to learn about the person, understand the person, and get to know them even better. And they feel understood. They feel heard, which is why most people who are just speaking most of the conversation are like, oh, man, that felt great. Is because they feel heard. And people just want to feel heard and they want to feel understood. So the first piece, the L of LUV, love, is to listen. Get better as a listener and don't feel like you always have to respond. Number 2 is understand. Understand is in 2 different categories. Number 1 is verbal. Number 2 is nonverbal. And men and women tend to communicate differently in a lot of different ways. This is a vast generalization, but in most cases, people usually fit in these categories, right? And I remember when I was younger, I was about 23, 24 years old. And my manager of the company that I was in, he was the number 1 developer of women in the company. Like, he had more female managers than anybody else. He had more female managers than any other female manager had. He developed women really well. And I asked him, because I was like, what is it? What makes it different? And he said, what I did was I started paying attention to the way that men communicate versus the way that women communicate. And he said, just over the next month, just watch women communicate. Watch 2 women. This isn't done in a creepy way, but just if you're at a coffee shop, you see 2 women talking, just watch them communicating and then look at 2 men communicating and see if you can tell what the difference is. And what I started noticing was there's vast difference in the way that men most of the time communicate and women communicate as well. And there was actually a study that was done on this years ago, and they had these children, they're about 4 or 5 years old, and they were in a classroom. And they put, it was just a normal classroom, desks, everything like that. And they had little boys and little girls, and they were talking to each other, and it was before class started. And they did a study over and over and over again. And they had a big glass wall where they could see in, but the children couldn't see that they were being watched. And what they noticed is that little boys tend to sit in their desk and face the front of the room where the teacher will be, and they will sit shoulder to shoulder and be able to have a full conversation, looking to the side, looking to the front of the room, looking to the side of each other, looking to the front of the room, but facing the same direction. And they think that comes back to when men used to be hunting, and men would go out and they would go hunting together. Is when you're hunting, you don't want to be necessarily always looking the same direction, but what you want to be doing is both you guys have your eyes looking, different ways if possible. So I know when I've been hunting and I go out hunting with one of my friends, we're usually back to back. And that way I can see 180 degrees, they can see 180 degrees, and we basically see everything that's there. But we can have a full conversation, never looking at each other, right? What they notice about little girls, though, is that little girls almost always turn to each other in their desk and squared up their shoulders. And so it's about understanding the way that different people communicate. And you notice how they communicate, and you start to actually mimic their communication. When I talk about understanding, there's a lot of reflection back to somebody. There's a lot of, head nods, square up your shoulders, and then give them an idea that you're listening with, yes, oh, wow. And you actually talk to them. And as they're talking, you just, if you see me on camera right now, as you're talking, you just nod your head. You start to actually let them know that they're being heard. Oh, wow. Yeah. Those types of things are reflecting back, making sure that you understand, and reflect back to them, repeat back to them what they just said, to let them know and let them show that you're understanding, that you're listening. And also sometimes when you reflect back, somebody will go a little bit deeper. And this is really an important part. This is something that I was bad at for a really long time, is I would just, if you're watching on camera, if you're watching on, YouTube, I would just stare at somebody as they're talking to me. And this is why a lot of times, like, women will be like, you never listen to me. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? I heard exactly what you said. Is there was no nonverbal reflection back to them that you were listening. And I was like, oh my God, now I'm starting to see all the ways that I've screwed up my communication with girlfriends in the past, right? So the second part of it is to show them through verbal and nonverbal communication that you are understanding, that you are following along with exactly what it is that they're doing. Makes them feel, once again, understood. People want to feel understood. And then the last part of the V, so it is listen, it is understand. The V is validate. Oh yeah, I completely understand. Tell me more about that. Oh, really? What did you feel when that happened? Oh, yeah, I see where you're coming from. It's to validate this person and their human experience. It's to validate them and not feel like you have to fix anything. It makes the person feel understood, and it makes them feel as if the conversation, if you go into a conversation with somebody and they tell you something, you're trying to fix it or switch it or fix it or switch it or tell them that they're wrong, they're going to close off. But when somebody feels understood and validated, they naturally open up a little bit more, and they feel like they can express themselves more. Validate them. Ask them questions. Even if you know the answer to what you think their problem is, ask them questions and allow them to come up with it. Oh, really? She said that? Well, what do you think she was feeling? Well, what do you think you should do about it? Instead of just telling people what to do, ask them and allow them to come up to it. And really what this does is it allows so many people don't journal. I talk about journaling all the time. They don't journal. They don't talk about their feelings. They don't talk about what's going on in their life. And they're kind of, it's all in their head. And because it's all in their head, it's really mushed up. And so this allows us to be able to become really great communicators. Notice when I said communication, I didn't say, hey, this is how you become an expert communicator. And this is the way that you talk. And you've got to hold your shoulders up straight. And you've got to be able to take your voice and project your voice. When I talk about communication, I'm not talking about standing on stage. I'm talking about a human-to-human connection, and be able to have somebody know that when you're sitting in front of them, that they are feeling understood. If you have children, try this with them. A lot of times what happens with parents is parents will try to fix their children, quote unquote, fix their children. And a lot of times the child just wants to be understood. So can you get better at listening, understanding, and validating your children? Even if you don't agree with it, can you see what happens? And then ask questions around it. They'll come up with the right answer eventually. I believe that intuitively everybody has the answers inside of them. Can we, as communicators, try to help them come up with their answers that are intuitively correct for inside of them? A lot of people, their child does something. Why did you do that? And then they yell at them. It's like, hey, why did you do that? Do you feel like that was the right thing to do? What do you think would have been better to do? How did it make you feel when she said that? And coming from a place of compassion and understanding versus trying to fix. Because there's one thing that I do know for each human. Every human just wants to feel understood. And so if we can master these three aspects, the LUV, the listening, the understanding, the validation, it makes other people around us feel like we're there to support them. And the thing that I know is instead of trying to fix somebody, if we can be there and they know that they have someone like us on their side to support them, they're more likely to step into whatever it is they need to do to make the changes that they want to in their life. And so that is the three pieces to being an incredible communicator. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please do me a favor. Share this on your Instagram stories and tag me in at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. I go through all my Instagram stories that I'm tagged in and I see what you guys are doing. I don't respond to every single one of them because there's a lot, but I love to see when you guys are listening to this with your family or listening to this when you're on a run or listening to this when you're at the gym. So, hey, tag me in it. Let's chat. I want to connect with you guys more often instead of just speaking to you and speaking at you. So once again, on Instagram, it is Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. And I'm going to leave the same way I leave every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. Today, we're going to dive into the 5 steps that you need to take in order to be more self-disciplined. Now, when we look at self-discipline, the phrase discipline makes us automatically think that discipline is a bad thing, right? If your dog poops on the floor, you discipline your dog. If your child does something they're not supposed to do, you discipline your child. And so there tends to be a bad connotation around discipline. But when you really think about self-discipline, if you've been listening to me long enough, I always say that self-discipline is the highest form of self-love because you never have to have discipline to do things that aren't good for you. You only have to have discipline to do the things that are good for you, right? Like you don't need discipline to eat an entire thing of ice cream. No, you just do it because that's easier. You need discipline to go to the gym though, don't you? That's self-love. You don't need discipline to sleep in. You need discipline to wake up so that you can have your morning routine. That's self-love. And so when we talk about self-discipline, first thing I want to cover is that becoming more self-disciplined is one of the highest forms of loving yourself more. And so I'm going to talk about how to be more disciplined. And the way I think of discipline is I think of it like a muscle. Like with me, I think that I'm quite a disciplined person. I'm not the most disciplined person in the world. But when I was younger, there was no discipline in this body of mine. I was just a lazy tub of ice cream and food and alcohol. That's what I used to be. Right? Discipline is a muscle. The more that you work out a muscle, your biceps, and the more that the more weight that you give that workout, the bigger those muscles will get. Same thing works with your discipline. If you're not a disciplined person today, you're not born with discipline. It is something that you become better at. So discipline is a muscle. Discipline is a habit. How can you become more disciplined? Because nobody is born disciplined. For me, like I said, I used to be extremely undisciplined and I developed it over years. So you don't need to be disciplined at the easy things in life. You need to be disciplined on the hard things, the things that should be done. And discipline is not about being perfect. When you think about discipline, it's not about being the most perfect version of yourself. It's like James Clear always says, every action that you take is a vote for the person that you want to become. So if you start thinking that way, you realize that in order to win an election, you don't need 100% of the votes. You just need the majority of them. So as long as the majority of your actions are heading in the right direction, you're going to be much better than if they're heading in the wrong direction. And a really good question to ask yourself before I give you these 5 tips, whenever you're doing something, you've got to ask yourself this question. Is what I'm doing right now getting myself closer or further away from my goals? Is what I'm doing right now getting myself, the actions that I'm taking in this very moment, is it getting me closer to or further away from my goals? If it's getting you closer to your goals, continue on that action. If it's getting you further away from your goals, stop and start moving towards the things that will help you get closer to your goals. So it's about winning more than it's about losing, not about being perfect. Because one thing that I know is when somebody that wants to be perfect messes up in some sort of way, a lot of times they end up just crashing the plane, because then they start guilting them. They get all guilty and they start creating shame around it. And you should have done this. No. You're going to fuck up. It's okay. But when you do, use that as a lesson to improve. So let's dive into it. The first tip out of the 5 tips to be more self-disciplined is try to challenge yourself to finish everything that you can. Like everything, every little tiny thing that you can. When you start something, finish it. Because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And that goes for the big things in your life, but also goes for the small things in your life. Because what you realize as you get older, as I've been in this self-development game for 17 years, is I've come to realize that it's not really the big things in life that change my life. It's the little tiny things done consistently every single day. And so if I can tell myself the way I do one thing is the way I do everything, and to try to get those little things done, usually I'm going to end up being better. So like an example would be, let's say that you cook some dinner. Well, screw it. Let's not even say you cook dinner. Let's say you go for something real easy. Say you wake up in the morning, you make yourself some oatmeal. You put the oatmeal inside of a bowl, you put some water in it, you throw it inside the microwave. It's on for, 90 seconds. You eat that, and you could immediately go and you could take that bowl of oatmeal and you go, man, that bowl, these oats, they're sticking on the inside of that bowl. Now, you know what I'll do? I'll put it inside of the sink and I'll put the water in, because, I've got to soak it. I've got to soak it to get that shit off the side, right? You could do that. Or if you want to try to finish every single thing that you do and ingrain that into being the type of person that follows through, what's the best thing to do? Take an extra 15 seconds, get the scrubber, scrub off the oats, and put that thing, dry it off and put it back where you found it. That's the way to finish everything. It might take an extra 15 seconds, but you're starting to develop the discipline of finishing everything that you start. Let's say that you're sleeping. You wake up and maybe your spouse is already out of bed, or maybe you sleep alone. You could wake up and you could just immediately go on about your day, but you want to finish the act of sleeping. So what do? You make your bed. Just like you finish the act of eating, you wash the dish, you dry the dish off, you put it away. When you finish the act of sleeping, you make the bed. It's these little teeny tiny things. When you can start to train yourself to do the little teeny tiny things every single time, it makes it easier to start to finish all of the big things that you do. So develop this mindset of whatever I start, I'm going to finish. Don't allow yourself to stop early, because stopping early is also a habit too. You want to develop the habit of following through on everything that you do. So that's the first thing. First thing is to challenge yourself to finish everything. The second thing is something I find a lot of people are really, really bad at. Planning ahead. Some form of time management, thinking ahead of what's going on. So let's say that you're on this fitness journey, right? You want to lose some weight, or you want to gain some muscle, or you want to get healthier, whatever it is. You could, walk into the gym and go, well, what's my workout going to be today? Well, I'm going to go from this thing to this thing, and I'm going to go from this, and you just kind of flow with it. You can flow with it if you want, or you can know when you walk into the gym exactly what your workout's going to be for the day. Oh, it's bis and tris today. Oh, it's back and chest today. And you could say to yourself, these are the exact movements that I'm going to be doing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm taking Thursday off, Friday, Saturday. These are my movements that I'm doing. This is exactly what I'm going to do. Taking Sunday off as well. It makes it easier to go in and execute when you've planned ahead. Now let's say you're trying to build muscle. You're trying to get some muscle on that scrawny little body of yours, right? Okay, I'm going to need extra calories. I'm going to need extra protein. You could walk into the kitchen and just try to figure out what you're going to be eating. Or you could plan ahead and say, I need this amount of protein, I need this amount of calories over this many meals. This is what I'm going to eat in the morning. This is what I'm going to eat at lunch. And this is what I'm going to eat in the evening. And you can, if you want to, just wing it. But if you really want to get disciplined and help yourself in execution, plan ahead. And so that's the next tip, is to make sure that you plan ahead in as many things as you can. Tip number 3 is to design your environment. One of the best ways to get really good at executing and to be more self-disciplined is to design your environment to make execution of whatever it is you need to do easier. So let's say, for instance, that you are trying to build muscle like we're talking about. Why don't you design your environment to remove any temptation that you might have around something? Or if you're trying to lose weight, why don't you take out everything that has too much sugar? Or if you're trying to get off of alcohol and to not drink for 30 days, why don't you hide every alcohol bottle so that you don't see it? You don't have to throw it all away. I don't care if you throw it all away. But if you hide it out of sight, out of mind, you're usually not going to think about it as well. And so you start to think, if I'm going to be more disciplined as a person, how can I make it easier on myself? Like, I could make it harder on myself, or I could just make it easier. Okay, I'm not going to drink alcohol for 30 days because I've never done that before and that's something I want to do. Remove all of the alcohol from sight. And you're just not going to think about it as much. If you have friends that like to go out and party, tell them the next 30 days you can't go out and party. Whatever you can do to start to be more intentional and design your external environment to do so. Let's say you want to get more disciplined and you don't want to read, or you want to read more and not watch as much TV. Really simple way to design your environment. Take your TV off the wall for 30 days, put it inside of a different room or put it inside of a closet, and on your coffee table, put out books. That alone is designing an environment that used to be made to watch TV inside of your living room to now you have an environment that is designed to reading. And so it just makes it easier to get into the habit to take the right actions when you design your environment correctly. So when you look at how you want to be more self-disciplined, ask yourself this question: how can I design my environment to make taking that action easier on myself? Simple. That's number 3. Number 4, this is a tip that one of my bosses a few years ago, 8-9 years ago, gave me. And she used to have it on her wall. And it said, progress, not perfection. And done is better than perfect. When you mess up, make adjustments. Don't shame yourself. Don't make yourself feel guilty. When you mess up and something didn't go exactly the way that you wanted it to, maybe you tried not to drink alcohol and somehow alcohol slipped into your face, right? Like, that's just happened. Oops, I just opened my mouth and alcohol fell in. Okay, you could, beat yourself up and hate yourself and shame yourself. You could do all of those things. Or maybe you wanted to not eat sugar and you had a moment of weakness and you ate sugar. Instead of, when you mess up, just beating yourself up, make small adjustments. Okay, let me take a step back. I had a moment of weakness. I fucked up. What can I do to make sure that doesn't happen again? Because what most people do is we shame ourselves, we guilt ourselves. I should have done better. What did I do wrong? I screwed that up. I always screw this up. Man, I'm never going to be able to create the life that I wanted, the body I wanted, the mindset I wanted, the business that I want. And we start to beat ourselves up. Instead of beating ourselves up, what we do, take a step back and make adjustments. Just take a step back, dude. Chill out. Stop being such an asshole to yourself. Chill. And we go, okay, I messed up. I have been doing really good. It's about progress, not perfection. Let's say that your goal is to work out every day for the next 30 days. And on day 13, you didn't plan accordingly. You got 12 days in, you get all 12 days. Day 13, you screw up. What happens normally? People get pissed off themselves. They shame themselves. Damn it, I always do this. And they focus on the one time they screwed up versus the 12 days in a row where they actually had progress. It's about progress, not perfection. Remind yourself of how well you've been doing. You see your moment of weakness. You see where you screwed up. Make adjustments so that you can make sure that you try to get around that again. So you take a step back. You see what happened. You stop judging yourself and you make a plan to get it done. So that's number 4. Focus on progress, not perfection. And number 5, reward yourself, right? Like, if your goal is to try to do incredible with your health over the next 30 days, give yourself a cheat meal every once in a while. It's a lot easier to go, like, if you're like, I'm going to eat really healthy for 30 days. If at one day at day 15, okay, I'm going to go on this 30-day journey. On day 15, I'm going to get one cheat meal. And that one cheat meal is going to be, it's going to be a big ass pizza. And it's going to be 2 margaritas, whatever it is, right? Then what happens is day 1 through 14, I'm like, I got to be disciplined. I got to be disciplined. I got to be disciplined. I got to be disciplined because I'm going to have a reward at day 15. Day 15, we go balls to the wall, margaritas and pizzas and all of that fun stuff. So that it's so much that I'm like, you know what? I need another 2 weeks off. And then over those 30 days, I had one crazy meal where I had a whole bunch of fun and I got everything that I wanted, but I got my fill. Now I can go for another 14 days. And so how can you develop a system of actually rewarding yourself? When I used to do, another example completely different, when I used to do 100 sales phone calls, right? We would do 100 sales phone calls. One of my managers taught me how to do this, and he was like, hey, what's your favorite candy? I was like, Skittles. He's like, okay, I want you to buy a bag of Skittles. I want you to bring them to the office tomorrow. I'm like, okay, cool. He goes, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to put 3 Skittles out in front of you, another 3 Skittles out in front of you, another. And every single time that you get 10 phone calls done, give yourself 3 Skittles. And you get another 10 phone calls done, give yourself 3 Skittles. And I started doing this over and over and over again. And it drove me to take the action that I needed to take because I wanted the Skittles. And I got the 10 phone calls done, I ate 3 Skittles. Oh my God, that was so good. Okay, I can't skip ahead. Let me go ahead and get another 10 done. And it was like breadcrumbs. It kind of made me keep going on my way to success. And so can you develop a system of actually starting to reward yourself for taking the action that you need to in order to create the life that you want to? Whatever it might be, whether it's the Skittles every 10 phone calls, or whether it's the cheat meal once a week, or whatever it is that kind of is the rewarding, so that you can go, damn it, you know what, I'm doing really good. Okay, let me keep on this path. And you use this, it's actually called a dopamine reward system. Your brain actually works better when you have a dopamine reward system. They've actually found that people will actually be more motivated to work out tomorrow if at the end of the workout today, they have a tiny piece of chocolate. Not an entire bar of chocolate, but a tiny piece of chocolate. It seems counterproductive to be able to have chocolate right after a workout, but that little bit of chocolate is a dopamine reward system for your brain, which makes your brain more likely to want to work out tomorrow. So how can you develop a reward system around everything that you do? So those are the 5 things that I got for you to be more self-disciplined. Number 1, challenge yourself to finish everything. Number 2, plan ahead. Number 3, design your environment. Number 4, focus on progress, not perfection. Number 5, make sure to reward yourself. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories and tag me at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. Once again, if you love this podcast, you'll also love my YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Rob Dial, ROBDIAL, to check out some of the videos that we've been putting up there to help you improve yourself. And I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial. Today, we're going to be talking about how to stop being so overwhelmed. I'm going to give you a 5-step process, very, very simple process to help you stop being so overwhelmed, right? So when you look at the world, there's a lot that's happening in the world, right? We can look and be like, if we look at all of the things and we can watch the news and see all of the things and we watch this news station, that news station, man, it can seem like there's a lot of stuff going on. It can seem really scary, right? We can get caught up in it. But then also, besides what's happening in the world, there's also your life, right? There's things happening in your life. You've got kids and you've got a job and you've got bills to pay and you've got all of these things that you need to do. And if you were to look at all of them and bills that are coming up and deadlines and the kids have to do this, you still got to do the laundry, like it can seem really overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. Overwhelm is a perspective. And so, I think the world's always going to be crazy. I think you're always going to be busy. So instead of trying to fix the world, instead of trying to fix other people, why don't we fix us, right? That's really what it comes down to. The first thing I want to say about overwhelm is this. There's a lot of times when I work with business owners, right? What I work with in business owners is the mindset of the business owner, because I know that the thing that's holding a business back from growing is nothing. Well, there's other things, but majority of the time, like 95% of the time that I see, it's the mind of the business owner. If that is restrictive, it will restrict the growth. And one of the things that I hear from a lot of business owners is like, oh my gosh, this is going on right now and I'm so overwhelmed, or it's overwhelming me. And the very first thing I always tell them, and this is not part of the 5-step process, but I want you to just understand this first, is when someone says, well, my employees are over, this is going on with my employees and this is happening, it's really overwhelming me. I say, no, we got to change your verbiage first. First off, the things going on with your employees are not overwhelming you. You are overwhelming yourself based off of your perspective of your employees. Can we agree to that? And that's the thing I always want to get people to first is instead of blaming something externally outside of them. Oh, I have the kids that I have to do this for, and I have a job, and I have deadlines, and I have this going on and this going, and you start to blame everything externally. If you blame externally, you can't change anything that's external. What you can change is you in what you do. And so the first thing I always take people back to is nothing is overwhelming you. You are overwhelming yourself. That's the first thing we really need to get clear on, right? So if you want to blame external, this ain't the podcast for you. This is how to change your perspective and get yourself out of overwhelm so that you can take the right action to make yourself feel less overwhelmed. So that's the first thing I want to talk about it and just really understand is that you are overwhelming yourself. So we need to get you out of it. So how do you get yourself out of it? Let's dive into it. The first thing is to breathe. You've been listening to this podcast long enough. Whenever anything happens, whenever I get overwhelmed, which happens a couple times a week, the very first thing that I do is I take a step back mentally from the situation. Because usually 99.9% of the time, when I am overwhelmed with things going on in my business and stuff I have to do, it's because I'm looking at everything at once and thinking that everything has to be done immediately. When in reality, in this very moment, in this present moment, there's nothing that has to be done. So what I do is I take a step back. I take 6 deep breaths. I go in through the nose. I go out through the mouth. I do it, in through the nose, out through the mouth. When I breathe out like I'm breathing out through a straw. So it is a long exhale because a long exhale actually slows your heart rate down and releases more carbon dioxide, which allows your body to relax a little bit more. Because when your emotions are high, your logic is low. And so when you're really, really caught up in overwhelm and you're overwhelming yourself, you're not thinking really clear. And so what you want to do is just do your breathing and think of something that you're grateful for. Think of something that's positive in your life. Even if it's just like, man, it hasn't been sunny in a few days and today the sun came out. I'm really grateful for that, right? And you start thinking of something that you're grateful for so that you can start to pivot your mindset that you are overwhelming yourself with and get out of the stress so that you can come from a positive place. Because when you come from a positive place of gratitude, it makes it easier to come up with ways to get yourself out of overwhelm, right? When emotion is high, logic is low, which is even more stressful because you feel like you should be doing something, but you can't figure out what you should be doing, right? So the first thing, just get better at just taking yourself out of your body, out of your mind, all of that, and then just feeling into the breath, okay? That's the first thing. Second thing that I find that really helps people out is when you are overwhelmed, the reason why you're overwhelmed is because you're thinking about everything all at once. Everything, everywhere, all at once. All of that stuff is what you're thinking about. And it's overwhelming. Let me say that again. You are overwhelming yourself because of the fact that you're actually trying to think of all of the problems and all of the solutions and when they need to be done and doing all of them right now. And so what you want to do, step number 2 after you do your breathing, is to write everything on your mind on a piece of paper. Get it all out of your head, everything. All of the BS that you got to do, everything that's stressing you out, every person that you're stressed out about, all of your thoughts, all of your feelings. Allow your mind to just release it all and put it on the page. One of the things I find that helps people so much is just literally by putting it on the page, there's already another level of relaxation. Because it's like your brain has been holding on to it. It's been bouncing around your brain 40 different things and trying to figure out the solutions and what you got to do and when you're going to do them. And when your brain knows, okay, it's on paper, it's like another level of relaxation. Because it's when it's on paper, what's important about knowing something that's on paper is when it's on paper, it can be planned, right? It makes it really easy to figure out what needs to be done and when it needs to be done and how to do it when it's on paper. And so now that it's on paper, it's out of your head, it's on paper, it can live there forever. Now let's go through each one of these things and ask yourself, when I'm looking at this, what is it that's stressing me out? What is the actions that I need to take? And what I would do is find the most important one, like the thing that has the most energy around it or feels like it has the soonest deadline or the thing that's holding you back the most or really, really making you feel it. And that's where we're going to go into number 3, which is deciding which one is the one that you want to take action on next and figuring out what is the next action to take. right? Because when you're thinking about all of the things that need to be done, you're not just thinking about the next step, you're thinking about the next 5,000 steps. And that's really, when you're thinking about that way, you can really overwhelm yourself because you can't take all the steps at once. You can only just take step 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, all of that. And so you've got to take the next step. And so you have to, now that you're looking at this piece of paper, you identify what's the one that stressed you out the most, or which one, if you got it accomplished, would make you feel the best, and you identify the next best action to take. Usually when you're overwhelmed, you're thinking about 46 different action items to take, and the 5 things you need to do in your business and the 7 things that you have to do with your kids and the 18 things that are wrong in your life. That's too much. A human can only do one thing at a time. You can only do one thing at a time. Multitasking is a lie. You can't do 40 different things at one time. So what it comes down to is so part of you is usually stressing out because you want all of the things to be done, but you can only do one thing at a time. And so if you want to start to feel better, progress helps you feel better. Progress equals happiness, as Tony Robbins always says. So if you feel, even though things aren't done, but you feel like you're making valuable steps in the right direction, usually those will help you feel a whole lot better. And so you just identify what's the biggest priority and what's the next best action that I can take, right? All right, now once you feel that your mind is calmed down, it's on paper, you know what action to take, get your physical body moving. One of the things that's hard to do is that if you've been stagnant for the entire day, it's a lot harder if you've been sitting sitting on your couch, or maybe you've been at the computer, it's 2:00 and you've been at the computer all day long and your body hasn't been moving. There's no momentum on the side of physical action. And so what you've got to do is you've actually got to start the momentum. You've heard me say it a million times. Action leads to more action. Inaction leads to more inaction. So if you've been inactive, physically not moving your body much today, except for maybe just your fingers because you've been typing at the computer and your eyes because you've been looking at the screen, get your physical body moving. Whatever it is that you got to do. I don't give a damn what it is, but get your heart rate up. Do jumping jacks. Do push-ups. Go for a walk. A lot of times when we're overwhelmed, we're thinking about all the stuff that needs to be done, but we're not doing any of them. And usually, if you're just sitting on the couch doing nothing, it's really hard to get yourself into forward motion. It's not hard. It feels like it would be hard to get yourself into forward motion. Like if I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like, oh man, I got to get up and do X, Y, Z. And I start thinking about it versus actually doing it. You've done this before, right? And then you think about, oh man, I got to do this thing and this thing is coming up and oh God, it's going to be just so hard to do. And I've got so many other things to do today. And instead of actually getting my ass up, I'm sitting on the freaking couch, which is not helping me get towards anywhere, right? So the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Instead of thinking about what I need to do, I've just got to take the first step. So I've got to get my physical body up and do something. I don't care what it is. It's got to get the heart rate up. You can go onto YouTube right now and you can go and put 5-minute home workout and you can do a quick 5-minute home workout, get that heart rate up. But you need some forward motion physically because action creates more action. So you've got to get, if you've been inactive, you've got to get into action because action creates more action. A lot of times, there's actually been a lot of studies on this, is a lot of people wake up and think like, well, I hope I'm motivated today because if I'm motivated, then I'll take action. And they're like, well, I just don't feel as motivated today, so that's why I didn't get anything done. Right? Like how many times have you heard somebody say that before? Well, I wasn't really motivated today, so that's why I didn't get anything done. That's a bunch of BS because psychologists have actually found that it's not you should be searching for motivation and then makes it easier to take action. It's that when you take action, you become more motivated. So instead of searching for motivation to take action, you need to take action to give yourself a chance to be more motivated. So what's the next thing that you need to do? Get your physical body moving and figure it out, right? And that takes us to number 5, which is just freaking do the first thing. Now that your body's had some movement, ride that momentum into the most important thing. It's really kind of interesting. I work with so many business owners and the solution to their problems is always so easy. It's take action. And then I talk to them and they don't take the fucking action. And I'm like, why didn't you take the action? Like, well, I had this to do and I was kind of overwhelmed and there's all of these things. And I'm like, do you see that you are your own worst? Like thinking about it doesn't help. trying to think about your problems is like trying to get yourself out of quicksand by running faster. You're only going to go deeper, faster. And so what it comes down to is you've got to figure out what it is that you need to do. And then you've just got to take action. Doesn't matter how you feel. You know, the most successful people that I've found are not people that wait to be motivated or any of that stuff. What they do is they take action consistently. They are not more gifted. They're a lot of times definitely not smarter than other people. But what they do is they just take action every day. And they take action, here's a key point, regardless of how they feel. Usually when you start taking action, you start feeling better. And so, you focus on one thing and one thing only. What is the action that you need to take right now? Become like a sniper rifle versus a shotgun. Like if you see a shotgun, you shoot a shotgun and it has all these pellets that go everywhere. That's how a lot of people try to be productive. Everywhere, all at once, trying to get it all done. But the most successful people that I've found are like a sniper rifle. Like they are looking down the scope and they're going for one thing and one thing only today. And they're focusing on that one thing and accomplishing that one thing. The most important thing of their day. Just imagine if every day of your life, the only thing that you got done, like besides obviously feeding the kids and that type of stuff, but as far as moving the needle forward in your life, the only thing that you got done was the most important thing. And that was it. Wouldn't you be like 5 or 10 times more successful in a year if you just got the most important thing done? So that's what I mean by a sniper rifle. Like you've got to be looking down the barrel and say, that's the one thing that I've got to go for today, right? It's hard to get overwhelmed when you're thinking about one thing. The problem is you're thinking about too many things and thinking about all the things that need to be done and every single step that needs to be done. Nope. One thing. What is your most important task for today? And tell yourself, if that's the only thing that I get done and that moves the needle, today was a successful day. So that's your 5 steps to stop being overwhelmed. Number 1, get yourself into breathing. Number 2, write down everything on your mind with pen and paper. Number 3, ask yourself what's the next best action to take and identify it. Number 4, get your physical body moving. And number 5, take action on that first thing. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories and tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. And I'm going to leave you like I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial, and if you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast episode. Today, I'm going to talk about how to change your personality. Now, you might be sitting there and saying, hold on, but my personality is who I am. Like, this is what I was born with. This is who I am, right? Like sometimes I see people and they're like, well, no, my child is this way because she's always been this way. I'm like, well, maybe she's been that way because you've always been that way and she learned how to be that way from you. And so we talk about how to change your personality. The first thing I want you to realize is that your personality is not real. It is something that you decide to do and decide to be unconsciously every single day. And so when you wake up every single day, you literally put on that personality like it's a shirt. Like you put on, same way you put on your undies and you put on your shorts and your t-shirts and you get ready for dress for work and everything. You do the exact same thing with your personality. And if you've been listening to podcasts long enough, you know personality, the root form word for personality is persona. It's the Greek word for mask. Persona was the mask that they would go on stage, they would put right before they went on stage. And so what that means is your personality is actually a mask that you're wearing. It's not your true self. Like if you're like, oh, I happen to be a short-tempered person. No. You've developed the personality of being somebody who has a short temper. You weren't born, like you didn't just come out of the womb and you just had a short temper, right? You might have had a short temperature, but you didn't have a short temper. And so it's a mask that you're wearing. It's a shirt that you are unconsciously putting on every single day. And I'm just here to say, what if tomorrow you just woke up and you put on a different shirt? What if tomorrow you just woke up and you put on a different personality? So instead of being the person that is easily triggered, you're the calm person. Instead of the person who is just sad all the time. Oh man, I'm so sad. You're just like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm going to be the happy person today. I'm just going to see what it feels like. Just try the shirt on, see if it fits. If it doesn't fit, put on another shirt tomorrow. I don't care. But you have to actually realize that your personality is fluid. It's not set in stone. And we're all wearing shirts that we need to look down on and say like, hey, is this the shirt that I actually want to be wearing? right? Is this the shirt I want to be wearing? So it's like for me right now, for those of you guys watching the video, I'm wearing a purple shirt, right? So my purple shirt might be like, well, I am this type of person. I'm that type of person. I have this personality. I have that personality. And so let me explain what I mean when I say the shirt that you're wearing. So there was a few years ago, Lauren and I were watching Queer Eye, and there was this lady who popped on, and she was talking about they went through this transformation and helped her out and all of this stuff. And she had really tough parents, and she had this aunt that was really, really tough on her. And she called her ugly when she was a little girl. She was like 8 years old. She called her ugly. And then this lady's like 34 years old, and she still thinks she's ugly. And I remember exactly where I was. I was in the kitchen, and Lauren was watching TV, and she was on the couch. And I said, man, that's crazy. It's kind of like her aunt just one day said, put this shirt on. And she's been wearing it every single day since. And she has no idea that she's unconsciously putting on this shirt of I'm ugly every single day. And so from that shirt, she's now developing a personality, and she is acting in certain ways that in her mind, a quote unquote ugly person would act. She thinks of herself the same way that a quote unquote ugly person would think of themselves. And she has put this shirt on and not even realize that she puts this shirt on. And she is going to be wearing the shirt forever unless something comes by and changes. You know, someone in your childhood could have said something to you, and you've been wearing that shirt your entire life. But it doesn't fit anymore. Like it was given to you as a child. It's a dirty shirt. It's torn. But every day you wake up and you just put it back on because it's comfortable. It's all you've ever known. It's quote unquote who you are. And so the question I have for you to think about is like, what shirt are you waking up and unconsciously putting on every single day? Is it like the I'm not good enough shirt? Is it the I'm not smart enough shirt? Is it the I'm ugly shirt? Is it the I'll always be overweight shirt? Is it the I have a short temper shirt? Is it the person who is always sad shirt? Is it the person who doesn't allow themselves to feel the highs and the lows? So you've got to stay you can't be emotional. Like what shirt are you waking up and putting on every single day? Have you ever thought, like, just think about that for a second. If your personality is not real, the person who I think is Rob Dial, myself, is just a bunch of thoughts that I've had over years and years and years, and it's the culmination of thousands upon thousands of conversations and things that I've watched on TV, and I've developed this personality that I thought was set in stone, but really it's very fluid, and it can be changed at any point in time. What is the personality that you've developed? The first part of changing your personality is realizing that your personality is not real in the first place. It's just something that you're deciding to do every day. It's the mask that you're waking up and putting on, just as the Greek word for persona, which is mask, that you would wear before you go on stage. So by wearing that shirt, by putting on that mask, by stepping into that personality, you are creating a reality for people to treat you that way. It's like it's like the phrase, if you wake up and you meet an asshole, you just met an asshole. But if you wake up and you meet assholes all day long, you're the asshole, right? So if you go out into the world as a certain person, you're going to get a reflection back to you from other people of the projection that you're putting out there into the world. And so if you see assholes all day long, people are reacting to you because you're the asshole, right? So it's like if people are acting a certain way towards you, do you want people to treat you differently? Maybe there's a personality that you've stepped into that's making people treat you the way that they're being treated. You know, if I was ugly as a kid and someone told me I was, then I could grow up to be the most beautiful person, but carry that ugly persona with me and people will treat me differently. Like, I don't know about you guys, but it's kind of funny with Facebook and Instagram, all that stuff, is you could be friends with people that you were friends with in high school, and you could see them and they could have been like, you see them now and you're like, whoa, what the hell happened to them? Like, they're really good looking now. But back when you knew them, it was like the ugly duckling, right? And they could be really good looking now, but they weren't that good looking when you were younger. And it's crazy because I know every person knows somebody who was like a really good looking person, an amazing person, but they don't view themselves as that way. And because they don't view themselves that way, they don't carry themselves in the way that they could. And because they don't carry themselves in a certain way, what happens then? They end up getting the reflection back to them from other people based off of how they're acting. And so people will reflect back to me the way that I am acting in the world. So if I put on the overweight shirt, if I grew up in a family that was overweight, And I heard all of the time, well, we're just big boned. It's in our genes. It's just the way that we are. Why would I ever work out? Why would I ever eat healthy? Any of those things. You've heard me use this example before, but if I have it deep into my subconscious that there's no way that I will ever overcome my DNA, which somewhere in my DNA says my family is overweight, why would I ever take the actions to actually start to build the body that I want to? If I grew up poor and I know that my entire family is poor and they've never had any money, then I'm wearing the poor shirt and I'm probably going to take poor actions. It's the reason why poverty is so hard to get out of. The reason why poverty is so hard to get out of is because poverty is what you see around you, and it's hard to break out of what you see around you because it's just a bubble. It's the reason why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer is not because of government systems, and obviously there could be all of those things, but that's not the debate that we're having here. It's that when you're born around a lot of money, making money just seems easy. It just seems normal. It just seems natural. That's what everybody does that's around me, right? But when you're raised in a poor situation, which I was, making money seemed really foreign. Like, how the freaking hell do people make money like this? Nobody around me is making any money. This doesn't seem to make any sense. And if I was wearing that poor shirt, which I wore that poor shirt for years and years and years, it's really hard to get out of that mindset. But what I realized is that I was actually in the mindset and I was a person that could pull myself out of it. So I started asking myself, like, okay, if I was raised this way, if I was around these types of people, what in my thinking would need to shift in order to get myself into a wealthy mindset? What actions would a wealthy person take? And instead of looking at my circumstances around me, I started looking at mentors that I've never met before in my entire life, but I read their books and I looked at their autobiographies and I watched documentaries about them. And I started to see that success left clues. As Tony Robbins says, like, success leaves clues. Okay, what are those clues and how can I start to follow them? I could change my personality from poverty to wealthy. If I'm not good at math, oh yeah, well then I'll never be good at math. Yeah, anybody can become better at math. It's just numbers. We can figure it out. It's just a system. It's just memorization. But we can become better. But if I'm like, I'm not good at math, well then I'm never going to take the actions to become better at math because I'm just not good at it, right? That's just what I think. If for me, I was raised with a father that was an alcoholic. I could look at that and go, well, yeah, I guess that's just the way my family is. I guess I'll become an alcoholic as well. And so it's like the story of the twins that have an alcoholic father. And then years down the road, they go and they see one of them is a successful businessman and one of them's an alcoholic. And they go up to the alcoholic and they say, hey, why are you an alcoholic? And he says, I'm an alcoholic because my father's an alcoholic. Then they go up to the successful and they say, hey, you're not an alcoholic. Why are you not an alcoholic? And he says, I'm not an alcoholic because my father's an alcoholic. It's the exact same story. They were both given the exact same circumstance. But what happened is they developed a different story around who they are. And that story around who they are dictated the actions that they took. Two completely different personalities were built off of the exact same circumstances. And so we wake up every single day and we unconsciously put the shirt on over and over and over again. And what we need to do is we need to start actually taking a step back and looking at ourselves. I always say when you're in the jar, you can't read the label. We're in the jar of our lives. At some point in time, we have to take our little head out of our brain and look at our lives and look at ourselves and say, what needs to change? What am I doing that I want to continue doing? What am I doing that I don't want to continue doing that's producing bad results? Because I'm putting on this ugly shirt. What if instead of the I'm so ugly, I put on the shirt of I love myself and I'm beautiful shirt. I'm perfect just the way I am. How would, if I think I'm ugly, how would my mindset and my actions change if I love myself the way I am? I'm perfect. We all know someone who wasn't the best looking, but they just have confidence. And you're like, well, that's kind of sexy. Like, you're not really that great looking, but you have all of this confidence. It's like they decided, you know what? I'm going to love myself anyways. I don't give a shit what I look like. I'm going to love myself. And that confidence actually makes them better looking. But then we also know people who are good looking, but they don't have any confidence, and it makes them not as attractive. It's kind of wild how that happens, isn't it? And so instead of saying, oh, I'm overweight, I'm going to be overweight forever, it's just like, no, I'm going to take that shirt off. I'm going to put a new shirt on, which is I'm going to lose weight because I want to take better care of myself. I'm going to lose weight because I want to be here for my children. I'm going to lose weight just simply because I want to, because I want to look better in the mirror, whatever it is it might be. It's going to be hard at first. It's not like you just wake up and your personality changes, but it's a consistent waking up in just a little bit of a shift of your actions, a little bit of shift to who you are, a little bit of a shift of what you do, what you don't do, all of that stuff. You've been listening to the podcast for a long time. You've heard me say his quotes. One of my favorite quotes by Alan Watts. And he says, you're under no obligation to be who you were 5 minutes ago. You can decide literally at the end of this podcast episode to just be somebody different. Just act differently, be somebody different, and just see how that plays out for the next year. And so this is the give and take of figuring out who we want to become. You know, if I put on this poor shirt, if I put on the I'm not good at math shirt, if I put on the alcoholism runs in my family shirt, all of those things, I'm going to become that person. I'm going to literally create the reality based off of my perception of myself. I'm going to start to change my perception of myself, and then I'm going to change my reality in turn. There's a book that I read years ago. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics, and it was this guy who is a surgeon, and he would notice that some people would come in and get surgery on something like really small, like a mole on their face, and they would come back and their personality be completely different. Like they thought in their mind that mole was the thing that was making them unattractive. They get that mole removed and they think that they're beautiful and everything changes. And so it's really cool because you start to see psycho-cybernetics, psycho-brain cybernetics, how they work, how the brain works is what the book is about. And it's basically about how people's view of themselves would change when they come in and get plastic surgery. Like he said, some people would get like this little tiny thing done and they would just change massively. They thought they were a completely different person. Some people would come in and get massive surgery done and there would be no change in their personality, which showed him that personality was just this thing that we decide that we want to be. And so what I really want you to think about, the point of today's episode, is what shirt are you wearing? What personality have you stepped into that you just don't want to put on again? Like what shirt do you want to take off? And if you're going to take a shirt off, you're not going to walk around shirtless in public. You might as well put a new shirt on. What is the shirt that you want? It won't change in one day. It's not going to happen right away, but it's a complete reprogramming. Now, this is important. I want you to think about this. If you're starting to reprogram yourself based off of things that happened to you in your entire life, if you have children, what shirt are you making them wear? Because you're programming your children's personality into themselves. Do they have their own personality and does it move and shift? Of course. But parents also mold the children's personality as well. So start to think about that. How am I molding my children's personality? Is it what I want them to be? Is it not what I want them to be? I don't know. That's for you to figure out. What shirt are you making the other people around you wear? The people that work with you, your employees, your friends, your family, everyone. Can you start to help people change their own personality based off of the way that you treat them? And it's just like Buddha said, there's a beautiful quote. And Buddha says, just as a snake sheds its skin, we must shed our past over and over again. It's easy to look into the past for, oh, this is what's always happened to me. This is who I've been. And we basically look at the past and we take the past and we place it into our present moment and say, because of what's happened to me in my past, because of how I was in my past, I will always be this way. But we have to shed that past over and over and over again. We have to shed that skin over and over and over again in order for us to step into a new person into the future. And so the question I want you to think about is what skin, what shirt do you need to shed? What do you need to release and get rid of and change about yourself? And if that's the case, what do you want to replace it with? So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on Instagram stories and tag me at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. And I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to teach you how to change your thoughts about yourself and how to change your thoughts about the world. Let's dive in. One of the biggest parts of psychology, like maybe step one, and of self-improvement as well, is self-awareness. It's a key psychological thing that you need in order to start to work on yourself. Like you can't fix something that you're unaware of. And so there's this thing that's called the self-perception theory. And it was brought up by psychologist Darrell Byrne in 1972. And this theory basically says that we develop our abilities, our beliefs, and our feelings by observing our own behaviors and then come to a conclusion on what must have caused them. And so we basically look at what we do and then we jump to some sort of conclusion. And then from there, we figure out who we are. And so with self-perception theory, at the heart of self-perception theory is this concept that is considered introspection, which another way of saying that is like self-observation. A lot of people are just mindlessly wandering through the world and just doing things and acting in certain ways and thinking in certain ways and having certain beliefs, but not actually observing the way that they're interacting with the world. So one of the key parts of this is taking yourself out of your own head, looking at yourself as if you're just another person and saying like, why is this person this way? Why do they act like that? Should they always be this way? If they want to create the life they want, should they change? A lot of times we do things, but we don't like sit around and think about why we do them. And we don't think about how it's affecting other people. Like, I think that if everybody in this world had extreme self-awareness, the entire world would be better, because we would start to think about why we are the way that we are, but also we'd be very aware of how we affect other people. And then we'd start to be very aware of, man, maybe I should change this so I don't keep affecting people this way. And so we don't a lot of times ask ourselves, is this way that I am? Is this how I want to continue being? Do I want to change myself? A lot of times people just say like, oh, well, that's how I am. Like, that's just how I've always been. That's just me. And that's not true. I want you to understand that how you are and what you think that you are is how you have chosen to be over your lifetime. Yes, you have chosen to believe it. You have unconsciously chosen it most likely, but it is a choice to show up and be the way that you are. And nothing in this world is set in stone. Nothing. Everything is always changing. If there's an aspect of your life that you don't like, then get off your ass and change it. If there's an aspect of yourself that you don't like, then get off your ass and change it. Nothing is the way that it is forever. The only constant in this world is change. The entire universe is changing. You are a part of the entire universe. Do you think you're the only thing? Your personality is the only thing that doesn't change, and it's that way forever? That's insane. Everything in the universe is changing but you? No. And let me ask you, are you the same person that you were 15 years ago? No. If I think about myself at 23 years old, way different person than I am right now. There is no part of you that is the same. In fact, every single cell of your body, trillions of them, are all different cells than they were just 7 years ago, which means physically, there is no part of you that exists that is the same, except the fact that you think and act the same. So if you want to stay the same, by all means, stay the same. But if you're listening to this podcast, it's not because you want to stay the same. It's because there's something that you want to change. So then how do we start to use this theory of psychology, the self-perception theory? Well, the thing about it is to do this. And I do this because I just something that I've always done, and I've always been intrigued by why am I the way that I am? Why are other people the way that they are? Is you need to go on this quest of observing yourself and meticulously paying attention to everything that you do, and then just question everything about yourself and test the validity of every single thought. Now, mind you, is this a daunting task? Hell yeah, it is. But really, if you're going to change, you need to just pull everything up from the roots and start questioning it. And I always say, when you're in the jar, you can't read the label. So you've got to take yourself out of the jar. You've got to read the label, and you got to say, who is this person? That's interesting. Why is this person this way? And put no emotion into observing yourself. Because a lot of times we observe ourselves, we see something we don't like, then we start to get emotional, we start to guilt ourselves and shame ourselves and all that stuff. No. Just look at it, no emotion, and just say why is this person this way? So this self-perception process, what it requires of you is reflection, and it requires insight. And what I always recommend with people, you don't have to be obsessed with journaling, but whenever you're trying to figure something out that is complex, like why are you the way that you are? Why do you act the way that you act? It is important to take out pen and paper and start to write it down. And so let's say that you have something happen with your spouse and it turns into an argument. And you're sitting there and you're like, why did that just turn into an argument? Have you ever done that before? You're sitting there like, what the hell just happened, right? It's like, take out a pen and paper and write it down, what the hell just happened? And then just start journaling it as if you have to describe it to somebody else who is not you. And then you just say why did I act that way? Why do I think that way? Why am I who I am? Like, why did I act that way? Why did I say that to her? Why did I blow up in that way? Why did she blow up on me? And you start to notice yourself and start to look at yourself as if you're just somebody who's observing, and there's no judgment. It's just more than anything else, it's curiosity. And you just get really curious about yourself. And you start asking yourself questions about yourself. Why am I this way? Why do I act this way? Do I actually believe this? Is this who I am? Does this line up with the person that I want to be in my future? Yes or no? And then you start to look at it and you decide from there if you want to keep it or if you want to change it. Hey, real quick, I want to introduce you to something called Mindset Mentor Plus. If you love this podcast, you will absolutely love what I'm about to talk about. I designed Mindset Mentor Plus to help you actively integrate every one of these episodes into your life. And here's how it works. With every episode of this podcast that comes out, Mindset Mentor Plus subscribers get more. You're going to get multiple page, detailed, printable worksheets, effectively a mini masterclass that's way more in depth than just this podcast. They also come with journaling questions, challenges, assignments, and so much more, so that you're not just listening to these podcasts passively, but you're actively integrating them into your life. That way you improve much faster. I also do monthly Q&A sessions in there and much, much more. If you want to learn more about it, go to mindsetmentor.com or click the link that's down in the description. Do you want to keep the way that you're acting? Do you want to keep the way that you're thinking? Do you want to keep showing up in the world this way? Or do you want to change it? And if you want to keep it, then keep it, no big deal. If you want to change it, then you need to start actually making a plan of how you want to be and who you want to be. And this self-perception theory works because there's basically two psychological principles that are happening in this moment. So there's one thing that's called cognitive dissonance, which we'll talk about, and the other one is called inferential insight. And so cognitive dissonance is basically this state of tension that pops up within somebody when our behaviors conflict with our beliefs and our attitudes about ourselves. And so one of the things that's really interesting about humans is that we don't like to act differently than we think we are. It makes us feel really awkward. It makes us feel really uneasy. And so that's what cognitive dissonance is, which is, I am who I am, and that's just the way that I am. And you have this belief about yourself, and then you act differently. And so what happens is if you believe that you are somebody, for instance, that has a short temper, well, then you're going to act that way. But if you sit there and you start getting really curious about, why do I have a short temper? Do I always want to be this way? I don't always want to be this way. In fact, I'm going to, from this moment on, not have a short temper. And you decide to flip that switch, which it is that easy to flip that switch of, I'm not going to be somebody who is like this. This is how my father was, and I don't want to be the same way with my children, the same way that my father was. I'm not going to have a short fuse anymore. I'm going to be calm. I'm going to be cool, collected. That is a commitment I'm making to myself, to my family, to my children. And you decide that's who you're going to want to be. Well, then if you start to act outside of what you decide, it's going to make you feel really awkward. That's what cognitive dissonance is. And it's going to make you want to click back into place of what you've decided who you are. I am not somebody who has a short temper. I am somebody who is calm, cool, collected, and I am going to go through this world without being angry, without blowing up on people, whatever it is. And so cognitive dissonance is a big piece of it. And there's this thing called inferential insight, which is our ability to basically derive meanings or conclusions from our observations. So then we see, okay, this is how I acted. We immediately go, well, that's who I am. And so something happens, and the human brain always wants to come to some sort of conclusion as to how or why it happened. So something triggers you, and being triggered is one of the best things that can happen because, and you've heard me talk about it in multiple episodes, where you are triggered is where you learn who you are. And so you get triggered and then you calm yourself down. You start asking yourself these questions. When you become triggered, become interested. This is your moment to learn about yourself. Get interested, get curious. Why did I become triggered? What was I thinking? What's behind all of it? And then you go through and you start to find your thoughts and you just question the validity of those thoughts. When you get into that and you start to actually get into this uncomfortable state of like, ooh, I don't like who I am. I don't want to be this way anymore. It makes you start to change your thoughts about yourself and your actions and your beliefs about yourself. And our beliefs are nothing more than something that you just learn along the way. Okay, I always thought that I was angry.
But really, when I go back to childhood, like I can think of a client of mine who was just like, always said like, I just have an anger issue. And I have an anger issue. And I was like, why do you think you have an anger issue? Well, because I always get angry quickly. Okay, why though? Well, like, where did that come from? Well, when I was a child, my parents used to always say, you get angry so quickly. And I was like, oh, so your parents told you that you get angry so quickly. And then I said, hey, I'm curious, did either one of your parents have an anger issue? Yeah, my dad had an anger issue. Okay, so you're telling me that a child came into this world without an anger issue. Like everyone has obviously different personalities and stuff, but there's no child that's just born angry. But a child came into this world, saw his father's anger issues, learned that's how you react in this world. And because he started acting this way, well, then his parents started saying, well, you just have anger issues. No. And then so what happens is because that happened from childhood, he just becomes this person who quote unquote has an anger issue. He blows up at people. That's just the way that he is. Well, no, now we can start to think about that and challenge your beliefs and be like, maybe you don't have anger issues. Maybe you're just accidentally programmed to be that way. Do you want to be that way forever? You don't? Well, what do you need to do to change it? Our beliefs are nothing more than something that you learned along the way. You weren't born with anger issues. You weren't born with those beliefs. These are all things you've learned along the way. And if you learned something, you could also learn something else, which is learn what it's like to not have an anger issue. Learn what it's like to take a deep breath, to be calm, to let things not trigger you. If you learned one thing, you can learn the other thing. And it might not be even your own belief. A lot of times it's other people's beliefs. And so when you have this lens of self-perception theory, what you do is you start to find your own beliefs. You find the beliefs that you quote unquote believe, and then decide if they align with who you want to be or who you're becoming. And then find the actions that you need that do align with who you want to become. You decide, do they align with who I want to be in the future? Do they align with who I'm becoming? And I understand like this right here is not easy. Like we're talking about pulling everything up from the roots. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of intention to remove yourself from your own head, your own stuff when you're triggered. But if you can do this, you can change yourself extremely quickly. And so the reason why this works is because our own self-perception plays a really critical role in our personal narrative of what we think of ourselves, what we think of the world, what's going on inside of our head. And basically this narrative becomes the guiding compass in your life. Everything filters through your internal narrative of who you think you are. And humans are inherently meaning-making creatures. So the meaning that you're creating around what is happening is really important. So it's like, what is the meaning that I'm giving this person just did? What's the meaning that I'm giving this? I'll give you a really good example. I had a client one time, and I was speaking with one of the clients. I'm not going to give you too many details. I'll just give you the details, but I don't want to, tell you specifically about this client. But anyways, I was speaking with a lady, and she had a small home that was on her daughter's property. And once a month, she would go there and stay there with the children. And, she would see her grandchildren, she would see her daughter, she would see her son-in-law, right? And there's a small house that's in the back, and she would stay there. And that was her house. She converted it. It's her house, everything. And her daughter and her grandchildren would use this small house when she was not there. And every time recently, for the first 5 or 6 years, everything's good. But recently, every time the mother has come over to the house that she owns, most of her stuff was put away inside of a closet. And so the mother ended up saying, I feel like I don't matter anymore. They take all of my stuff and they just throw it in the closet as if I'm invisible, as if I don't exist. And she said, I feel like my daughter and my grandchildren are pushing me away. They're putting my stuff away and it makes me feel invisible. It's like they don't want to talk to me anymore. And so I was like, okay, let's get a 3-way Zoom call. Like, let me speak with your daughter and you as well. And what we came to figure out was, although the mother felt like she didn't matter anymore and felt like they didn't want her to be around and felt like she was quote unquote invisible, when we spoke to the daughter, what she said is they were putting the mother's stuff away because she didn't want her kids to break any of her stuff. So she was actually trying to take care of her mother's things. But the mother had an internal narrative from childhood of, I don't matter. And so she took this narrative from childhood and placed it on the situation with the relationship with her and her daughter. But once the daughter shared why they moved all of her stuff, the mother's internal narrative was just destroyed. It doesn't make any sense anymore. It no longer held any weight. In fact, the daughter said, the reason why we wanted you to build the house in the backyard is because you do matter and we wanted you to be around. If we didn't want you to be around, if you didn't matter, then we wouldn't have you come around. We wouldn't have built that house in the back. And see, the problem is this, is you have to start questioning. Like if she would have questioned her own thoughts, she could have probably come to this conclusion. But the problem is we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. And so we're filtering everything through this narrative that we've built up from our lives. And now you have this lady who's literally taking her childhood and her narrative from her childhood of I don't matter, placing it on a relationship with her children or grandchildren, and she's fabricating a reality that doesn't even actually exist. And she's literally creating this feeling by saying, oh, my stuff is away. They must not want me to be here. They must think I'm invisible. When in reality, what they're trying to do is just respect her stuff, right? And so it's really interesting why you want to get like really, really clear on like, who am I? Why do I think this way? Is all of this true? We filter everything through this narrative that we built up through our entire lives. And the mother could have used the self-perception theory to help her. Get a pen and paper and ask yourself, does moving my things mean that I don't matter? What if they do think that I matter? Journal through, answer these questions. Are they actually trying to push me away? Are they trying to make me invisible? Could there be something that I'm not seeing in this situation? Or could I be seeing things incorrectly? And so when you can start to kind of get really curious about yourself and get curious about your thoughts, you start to poke holes in what you believe is actually truth in reality. And so when you can use this, you get a whole lot of self-awareness. And what you'll do is you'll start to, over time, resolve inner conflicts before they even come up. And then you'll start to really, really construct empowering personal narratives versus ones that make you feel like shit. And so what you want to do is have this mindful observation of yourself. Start to look at yourself from the outside looking in. And then you develop this cognitive reframing process. And cognitive reframing is just taking your thoughts and reframing them and changing them to what you want them to be. And so this process of just constantly observing yourself without any judgment, any behavior. Why am I feeling this way? What does this say about my attitudes, about my beliefs, about my feelings? And then reframe them to see if maybe there's a different perspective that I don't see that will just destroy my limiting beliefs. And a lot of times your beliefs are just a house of cards. And it just takes a little bit of just a flick and the entire thing comes crumbling down. And so then the last piece that I would recommend is if you feel like in these situations that you're seeing something this way, have a conversation with the other person if there's another person involved. A lot of times you're seeing things completely differently than they're seeing things. And if that's the case, then all you got to do is have one conversation, completely destroy the entire thing. And you realize that you were seeing things differently than they were seeing things. And we could come together and try to figure out some sort of way for us to work together. And that right there is how you start to change your beliefs about yourself, your beliefs about the world, and how to actually use self-perception theory to change your life. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories. Tag me in at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. The only way this podcast grows is from you guys sharing it. So I greatly appreciate it every time you share it. And also, if you love this podcast, you would also definitely love Mindset Mentor Plus. It's a subscription service where every episode of this podcast that comes out, people that are in Mindset Mentor Plus get a whole lot more. So go deeper into every single topic. Every single episode that comes out inside of Mindset Mentor Plus comes with worksheets. It comes with journaling questions. It comes with assignments. It comes with an entire community of thousands of people who are also in Mindset Mentor Plus that you can connect with from all over the world. And we do monthly Q&A sessions live with me as well. So if you want to learn more about it, go to mindsetmentor.com. Once again, mindsetmentor.com. And with that, I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day.